The warning ignored. The deep space scanner aboard the colony ship, New Dawn, chirped with an urgent tone that made Captain Sarah Chen's blood run cold. After 18 months of peaceful travel toward the Kepler 442 system, this was the last thing she wanted to hear. "Captain, we have multiple contacts approaching fast," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the sensor station. His young face was pale as he studied the readings. 27 ships, configuration unknown. They're not broadcasting any identification signals. Sarah moved to the command chair, her mind racing through possibilities. The New Dawn carried 15,000 colonists in cryo-sleep, families seeking a new life among the stars. She had hoped their journey would remain quiet, but the universe rarely granted such wishes. "Distance and time to intercept?" she asked, keeping her voice steady for the crew's sake. 43,000 kilometers and closing. At their current speed, they'll reach us in 16 minutes. The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems. Sarah had commanded military vessels before accepting this civilian mission, but the New Dawn was a colony ship, not a warship. Their defensive capabilities were minimal, designed more for asteroid deflection than combat. "Try hailing them," Sarah ordered. "All frequencies, standard first contact protocols." For several minutes, they received nothing but static. Then the main screen flickered to life, revealing a being that made several crew members gasp. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb light. Its eyes glowed amber, and when it spoke, rows of sharp teeth became visible. "Primitive vessel," the creature said in perfect English, though its voice carried an electronic translation quality. "You have entered territory claimed by the Zilithian Empire. I am Commander Vorthak of the 3rd Conquest Fleet. Prepare for boarding and surrender." Sarah stood slowly, straightening her uniform. Years of military training had taught her to project confidence even when facing overwhelming odds. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the human colony ship New Dawn. We're peaceful travelers en route to an unclaimed system. We have no hostile intentions and request safe passage through your space." Vorthak's laugh was like grinding metal. Behind him, other Zilithians moved about what appeared to be a warship's bridge. Their technology looked advanced, with holographic displays and sleek metal surfaces that spoke of a civilization far older than humanity's. "Humans," Vorthak said, as if tasting something unpleasant. "We have heard rumors of your kind. Young species, barely evolved from your primitive homeworld. You should feel honored. The Zilithian Empire has conquered 47 star systems over the past 3 millennia. Your people will make excellent servants." Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, but she forced herself to remain diplomatic. The lives of 15,000 people depended on her next words. "We seek no conflict with your empire. Surely there's room in this vast galaxy for both our peoples to coexist peacefully." "Coexist?" Vorthak's amber eyes gleamed with amusement. "Inferior species do not coexist with the Zilithian Empire. They serve or they die. Your choice is simple. Surrender now and accept slavery, or be destroyed where you drift." The bridge crew looked to Sarah, waiting for her response. She could see fear in their eyes, but also determination. These were people who had left everything behind to build new lives among the stars. They deserved better than slavery or death. Sarah stepped closer to the screen, her voice taking on a tone that anyone who had served under her would recognize. It was the voice of someone who had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. "Commander Vorthak, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. We are offering you one chance to reconsider your demands. Leave us alone, withdraw your fleet, and forget you ever encountered us." Vorthak's scales seemed to ripple with what might have been laughter. "And if we refuse your amusing request?" Sarah's eyes hardened to steel. "Then your worlds will be left in ruins." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the New Dawn's crew stared at their captain in shock. A single colony ship threatening an empire that had conquered 47 star systems seemed like madness. Vorthak recovered first, his laughter echoing through the bridge. "Did you hear that?" He called to his crew. "The primitive human threatens the Zilithian Empire. A species that learned to cross space mere decades ago challenges those who have ruled the stars for millennia." The Zilithian bridge erupted in what sounded like mocking laughter. Vorthak turned back to the screen, his amber eyes now burning with fury. "For your insolence, human, your death will not be quick. Prepare to watch your precious cargo of sleeping colonists become space dust." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Lieutenant Webb was the first to speak. "Captain, sensors show their weapon systems are charging. 27 ships, all armed with what appears to be plasma cannons and missile arrays." Sarah moved to her command chair, her fingers dancing over the control panel. "Emergency protocols. All stations. Wake the senior staff and begin evacuation procedures for the cryo bays nearest to the hull." "Ma'am," called Chief Engineer Rodriguez from his station. "The experimental quantum drive is still untested. If we push it beyond recommended parameters, I know the risks, Chief, but 15,000 lives are worth the gamble." Sarah's voice carried across the bridge with quiet authority. "How long until we can jump?" 8 minutes for minimum charge, 12 for recommended safety levels." "We don't have 12 minutes." She turned to the weapons officer. "What do we have for defense?" "Point defense lasers and a few dozen mining charges. Nothing that could scratch their shields." The first Zilithian missiles appeared on screen, streaking toward the new dawn like deadly stars. Sarah watched them approach, calculating distances and time. Everything depended on the next few minutes. Evasive maneuvers, full engine power to maneuvering thrusters. "Chief, I need that drive in 6 minutes or we're all dead." The new dawn lurched as the first missiles detonated nearby, their explosions lighting up space like tiny suns. The ship's shields flickered and sparked, but held. Barely. "Hull damage on decks 7 through 12, reported the damage control officer. "No breaches yet, but the next wave will finish us." Sarah gripped her chair as the ship shook from another near miss. On screen, she could see the Zilithian fleet closing in, their weapons charging for a final devastating volley. "Quantum drive at 60%, Rodriguez called out. "It's not enough for a clean jump, but we might be able to." "Do it," Sarah ordered. "Emergency jump, any heading that gets us away from here." The universe seemed to fold in on itself as the experimental drive engaged. Reality twisted and bent around the new dawn, and for a terrifying moment, Sarah wondered if they would emerge intact on the other side. Then space snapped back to normal, and they found themselves floating in the void between star systems, far from the Zilithian fleet. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red, and damage reports flooded in from all decks. "We made it," Webb said, his voice filled with disbelief. "The Zilithians are gone. We're alone." Sarah slumped in her chair, the adrenaline finally wearing off. They had survived, but at what cost? The quantum drive was damaged, life support was running on backup power, and they were stranded light years from their destination. "Damage report," she ordered. "Quantum drive is offline indefinitely. Conventional engines are functional but slow. Life support is stable, and the cryo systems are undamaged. We can reach the nearest human outpost, but it will take 6 months." Sarah nodded, already planning their next moves. 6 months was enough time to send a message ahead, to warn Earth and the other colonies about the Zilithian Empire. But more importantly, it was enough time to make good on her promise. "Lieutenant Webb, compose a message for transmission to Earth Command. Priority Alpha classification. Tell them we've made contact with a hostile alien empire, and that we've issued a warning they chose to ignore." "What kind of warning, Captain?" Sarah's eyes fixed on the view screen, staring out at the stars that held both promise and threat. "Tell them that Captain Sarah Chen of the New Dawn promised the Zilithians that their worlds would be left in ruins if they continued their aggression. And tell them that humanity always keeps its promises." As the New Dawn limped toward safety, Word of the encounter spread across human space like wildfire. The Zilithian Empire had made their first mistake by underestimating humanity. It would not be their last, but it might well be their most costly. In the depths of space, the seeds of a conflict that would reshape the galaxy had been planted. The Zilithians had mocked humanity's warning, dismissing it as the empty threat of primitives. They would soon learn that humans had a very different understanding of what constituted a promise. The promise fulfilled. 6 months had passed since the encounter at Kepler 442, and the galaxy had changed in ways that the Zilithian Empire was only beginning to understand. Commander Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying reports that made no sense to his tactical mind. "Explain to me again how an entire mining station simply vanishes," he said to his intelligence officer, trying to keep the frustration from his voice. Officer Krell shifted uncomfortably, his scales rippling with nervous energy. The facility at Syrian Prime was operational at 800 Standard Time. By 900, all communication ceased. Our investigation team found the station intact, but completely abandoned. All equipment was functional, but every trace of technology more advanced than basic mechanics had been disabled. Vorthak's amber eyes narrowed. Disabled how? Unknown, Commander. The power systems were undamaged, but they no longer functioned. Computer cores were physically intact but contained no data. It was as if someone had reached into the very essence of our technology and simply turned it off. This was the 7th such incident in the past month. Military outposts, mining stations, and research facilities across the Zilithian Empire were going dark without explanation. No signs of battle, no evidence of conventional attack, just sophisticated technology rendered useless. Have there been any sightings of the vessels responsible? Krell consulted his datapad nervously. Sensor ghosts, mostly. Brief contacts that vanish before we can get targeting solutions. The few clear readings we have suggest ships of unknown configuration, smaller than our cruisers but somehow able to evade our most advanced detection systems. Vorthak thought back to his encounter with the human colony ship 6 months ago. The primitive captain who had dared to threaten the Zilithian Empire. He had dismissed her words as the desperate bluff of an inferior species, but now he wondered if he had made an error in judgment. "Alert all fleet commanders," he ordered. "I want patrols doubled around critical installations. If these phantom ships are responsible for our losses, we will catch them and make them pay." 3 days later, Vorthak got his wish in the worst possible way. The attack on Zilithian Central Command at Draconis VI began at exactly 600 local time, though none of the defenders saw it coming. The first sign of trouble was when the orbital defense platforms simply stopped responding to commands. Not destroyed, not damaged, just silent. Captain Sarah Chen watched the Zilithian response from the bridge of her new ship, the Retribution. The vessel bore little resemblance to the colony ship New Dawn. Built in the shipyards of Earth using revolutionary quantum disruption technology, it was humanity's answer to alien superiority. Zilithian patrol ships are responding to the command station's distress call, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Torres. 12 vessels, including 2 heavy cruisers. Sarah nodded, studying the holographic display that showed the approaching enemy fleet. 6 months of careful planning had led to this moment. The Zilithians had ignored her warning, continuing their expansion toward human space while treating her words as a joke. Now they would learn the difference between human promises and alien threats. "Are our sister ships in position?" "Affirmative, Captain. The Vengeance and Promise Keeper are holding station at the L4 and L5 points. The enemy is walking into a perfect triangle." Sarah smiled grimly. The names of humanity's new warships had been chosen carefully. Each one carried the memory of the insult delivered by Commander Vorthak, and each was crewed by volunteers who had lost family to Zilithian raids on outer colonies. "Signal the fleet. Operation Reckoning is now active. Remember, we target military and industrial assets only. No civilian casualties." The quantum disruption weapons that had taken years to develop fired silently in the vacuum of space. Unlike traditional energy weapons that sought to destroy through brute force, these devices attacked the fundamental quantum structures that made advanced technology possible. They didn't blow up Zilithian ships, they simply made them stop working. Vorthak watched in horror from his position 20,000 kilometers away as his patrol fleet began to drift powerlessly. Their weapons went silent, their engines died, their shields flickered out of existence. The ships remained physically intact, but they had become nothing more than expensive metal sculptures. "How is this possible?" he whispered, staring at the tactical display. His science officer, Thyra, worked frantically at her console. "Commander, the quantum signatures from their weapons are unlike anything in our database. They're not destroying our systems. They're unmaking them at the subatomic level." On the main screen, 3 human ships decloaked around the disabled Zilithian fleet. They were smaller than Zilithian cruisers, but moved with predatory grace, their hull design speaking of a technology that had evolved along different paths than anything in the Empire. A communication request appeared on Vorthak's console. With trembling claws, he accepted it. Captain Sarah Chen appeared on screen, looking exactly as she had 6 months ago, except for the cold determination in her eyes. Behind her, the bridge of the Retribution hummed with activity as human crew members monitored their flawless victory. "Commander Vorthak," Sarah said, her voice carrying the same quiet authority he remembered. "I believe we have some unfinished business. You're supposed to be dead. My fleet destroyed your primitive colony ship." Sarah's smile held no warmth. "Your fleet destroyed empty space, Commander. We've learned a great deal about Zilithian sensor systems in the past 6 months. Your technology is impressive, but it has predictable weaknesses." Vorthak looked around his bridge, seeing the fear in his crew's eyes. "What do you want?" "I want you to remember a conversation we had 6 months ago. You demanded the surrender of 15,000 innocent colonists. When I offered you a peaceful alternative, you chose to attack." The Zilithian commander's scales rippled with memory. "You threatened our worlds." "I warned you," Sarah corrected. "There's a difference. I told you exactly what would happen if you continued your aggression toward humanity. You chose not to listen." On his tactical display, Vorthak could see the scope of the human attack. 17 Zilithian worlds were reporting similar incidents. Military installations disabled, defense fleets drifting powerlessly, industrial centers reduced to pre-technological capability. The humans hadn't destroyed the Zilithian Empire, but they had neutered it completely. "Your warning spoke of ruins," Vorthak said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yet our worlds still stand." Sarah's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained hard. "Commander, what is a civilization without technology? What is a star-spanning empire when its ships can no longer fly, its weapons can no longer fire, its computers can no longer compute? We haven't destroyed your buildings or killed your people, but we have left your worlds in a very specific kind of ruin." The truth of her words hit Vorthak like a physical blow. The Zilithian Empire's entire foundation rested on technological superiority. Without their advanced weapons and faster-than-light travel, they were just another species struggling to survive in a hostile universe. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends on you," Sarah replied. "Humanity offers the Zilithian Empire a choice. Withdraw all forces from human space, cease all expansion toward our colonies, and we will restore your technology. Continue your aggression, and your empire will remain exactly as it is now, a collection of isolated worlds with no ability to threaten anyone." Vorthak stared at the human captain, seeing something in her expression that he finally understood. This wasn't cruelty or conquest, it was justice. The humans had kept their promise exactly as stated, delivering consequences that fit the crime perfectly. "You could have destroyed us completely," he said. "We could have," Sarah agreed. "But humanity doesn't wage war on civilians. We target those who threaten the innocent. Your military machine is broken, but your people can still live and grow." The choice of how they do so is yours. Hours later, as Vorthak prepared the formal withdrawal order that would pull all Zilithian forces back from human space, he reflected on the lesson his empire had learned. The humans had seemed primitive, their technology inferior, their threats empty. But they had possessed something the Zilithians had forgotten in their millennia of easy conquest: the absolute determination to keep their promises, no matter the cost. The galaxy was a different place now. The Zilithian Empire would rebuild, but they would do so with a new understanding of their place in the cosmic order. Humanity had proven that strength wasn't measured only in weapon power or ship numbers, but in the will to stand behind one's words. As the human fleet disappeared into quantum space, leaving the Zilithians to contemplate their future, one thing was certain: no species in the galaxy would ever again dismiss a human warning as an empty threat. When humanity made a promise, they kept it. The stars themselves seemed to whisper the lesson that would echo through the cosmos for generations to come. Underestimate humanity at your peril, for they are a species that turns their words into reality through sheer force of will.